CityCast Pittsburgh is sponsored today by Open Streets PGH, organized by Bike Pittsburgh. It's coming at you Sunday, June 29th, where cyclists and pedestrians can travel 3.6 miles, all car-free, through East Liberty, Homewood, Larimer, Point Breeze, and Wilkinsburg. So you can bike, walk, dance, skate, take an exercise class, check out local businesses, build connections, and see the city in a whole new way without the fear of cars. Again, all totally free. See the route at openstreetspgh.org and follow at openstreetspgh. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, protests have been popping off, inspired in part by what's happening in LA, but Pennsylvanians worried about ICE activity here may want to keep their eyes peeled. We have heard from a lot of yins about our recent shows, which we love, so we are sharing the fun and honestly sort of dismal facts you all sent in. Plus good news for Northsiders and bridge lovers, even musical theater stands. And we're sharing a little bit more about how you can celebrate all the holidays coming up this weekend and next. I'm with CityCast's Sophia Lowe, talking about some of the biggest stories of the week. It's Friday, June 13th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Hi, Sophia.
Hello, Megan.
It is Friday the 13th. Tomorrow's Flag Day. Father's Day is on Sunday. It's a big weekend.
Yeah, and obviously I am here to talk about the most important one of them all, Friday the 13th, Tattoo Day.
Oh, yeah, there's always like all kinds of flash tattoos in Pittsburgh on that whenever we get one.
Yes, and Chipotle is also celebrating Friday the 13th. If you show up in stores between 3 to 4 p.m. and you have a tattoo, it's buy one, get one free.
Wait, buy one, get one at Chipotle?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With a tattoo?
If you have a tattoo, yep. Mm-hmm. I think it can be temporary. I didn't look at the rules that closely because I don't think I'm going to go because it's like 1 hour in the middle of the afternoon. But I like that they're getting in on this for some reason.
That's so oddly specific. And I also love the temporary tattoo idea. Like, who's checking, honestly? The U.S. Open, of course, is also still in town here in Pittsburgh. More on that later. But Sophia, let's start from the beginning of the week. Pittsburgh got off on an unfortunate foot this past Monday.
Right. But I'm actually going to take it back and take us over to California because ICE had started ramping up raids in Los Angeles. So over the weekend, not surprisingly, a bunch of anti-ICE protests popped up. And then now at this point, Trump has sent in the National Guard and the Marines there. They were not requested by the governor. And I've also read reporting that says local law enforcement also did not request any kind of help from, the national level.
Yeah, I mean, sending in the National Guard is also setting such a dangerous precedent. I feel like that's the bulk of what I've been seeing reported on here because there is a federal law that says troops cannot enforce domestic laws. But I guess Trump is trying to get around this by saying the president's allowed to call in the Guard if there's, quote, danger of a rebellion against the U.S. government. But seems like a stretch, bud.
Yeah, that's what I've seen a lot of experts say. This feels like Trump very much bending the rules. But now these anti-ICE protests have spread all across the country. So Pittsburgh joined in on Monday in solidarity and also just to protest against ICE raids here around our region. So the protest here on Monday was about 100 people, according to reports. Decent showing because this was in the middle of the afternoon. Mm-hmm. There was also a really big union presence. Our local SEIU was there, United Steelworkers, bricklayers, allied craft workers, organizations like Indivisible and Casa San Jose were also present. But one of the reasons for this big union presence was to support David Huerta. He's a union leader that was arrested in LA during the anti-ICE protests. People were demanding his release, and he has since been released but charged with interfering with an officer's duty.
Which is just so petty
stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And another big figure who was here in Pittsburgh was Mayor Gainey.
And a reminder on that, Mayor Gainey has said that Pittsburgh police officers are not supposed to be cooperating with ICE. According to the Bureau's procedural manual that lives online, quote, members shall not dedicate time or resources to the enforcement of federal immigration law, where the only violation of law is suspected civil immigration violation, meaning not a criminal charge, like just an immigration or suspected immigration issue.
Right.
Though, to be clear, we have asked several times over the last few months and several different people what the discipline might be if like a city police officer did help ICE on their own time. And I have yet to get a direct answer on that. I think they would generally be subject to the same standard disciplinary process that officers are all the time, which can start with something as simple as like a verbal warning. But like that doesn't tell me anything. Like the mayor can say they cannot and they will not do this, but that doesn't stop an individual human from deciding that they want to.
Well, if you know, let us know. But I also want to share a clip of Mayor Gainey at that rally. He posted this clip of him speaking on his Twitter. If you want to hear a little more from him, the link for his post is in our show notes.
It's good to see you. And it should be good to see all of our neighbors. Yes. And we have to take a stand against organizations and entities that are used as a terrorist movement and not as a peace movement. There is no reason why we should be sticking ICE on anybody. On the innocent. Creating separation instead of unification. It's up to us to stand up.
And if you do think you're seeing ICE like operating an encounter here in the Pittsburgh area, the advocacy organization Casa San Jose has an emergency line for that. So that could mean like you think you're seeing someone be detained or just like talking to somebody, intimidating someone in like uniform clothes or not. You can call Casa San Jose for help. So their number is 412-736-7167. We also talked to an attorney at the ACLU of Pennsylvania about like how to handle these situations. This was both on the podcast and we have written versions that live on our website. That's pittsburgh.citycast.fm. And we translated both into Spanish. So we'll link them in our show notes. If you know anyone who might benefit from hearing it, please do share.
Yes, very good resources. And I've been seeing more posts on like the Pittsburgh subreddit about ICE being in the area. I've also kind of heard that anecdotally with friends. They're saying that they're kind of seeing these messages in group chats. But Casa San Jose actually recently posted on their Instagram that says many of these recent reports have been false or unverified. They actually kind of discourage people from posting on social media because if you don't have that verification and it isn't confirmed, it could cause a lot more panic and anxiety, re-traumatize people. That being said, ICE is in the area. Casa San Jose's May stats say that 23 detentions have been reported. But if you do see like a post somewhere about be on the lookout for ICE, just kind of think twice about where you're getting this information, and then maybe like fact check it, see if Casa San Jose has posted anything. And they also have a really great guide that if you do see ICE agents, like how to properly document and send them information. So it's most helpful.
Yeah, again, if you have any questions, do check in with Casa San Jose. They're just such an amazing local resource, and they do have legal clinics too.
Kind of like office hours. If you have any questions, want to get like a gut check on anything, you can do that with them. And, you know, while the city of Pittsburgh doesn't work with ICE, I've learned that some other police departments in our region do or like want to be working with ICE. So Axios put out an explainer this week about departments all over the state that do cooperate with ICE. So these police departments signed this type of agreement called a 287G agreement. And Axios explains that this lets local police, quote unquote, carry out immigration enforcement and supplement federal officers. So in terms of our area, Lower Borough and Sewickley Township have signed on to this. And Butler County and Washington County have both signed on, but they're waiting to hear back. Like, I guess you have to be accepted.
Yeah. Something that, you know, someone I know pointed out to me recently is that they weren't defending ICE exactly. This was in context with a larger conversation, but they mentioned this, that ICE does a few tasks that the wider world does sometimes generally appreciate, like checking imports to make sure that there's no contraband, helping rescue and extract people that have maybe been victims or targets of human trafficking, that there are elements of homeland security that many people might agree are good things. And I take that point, but I also think people wearing the same uniform right now are being dispatched to, I mean, at minimum, separate families, but also there's a lot of terror happening and people are scared, and it's contributing to a lot of, again, at minimum, anxiety and fear.
Also, ICE is not that old. It was founded in 2003. I'm older than ICE. So, I don't know, even if ICE is part of helping people who have been victims of human trafficking, I assume there was a way to help people before ICE was created. So I don't know if we need ICE to be doing that. But if you're mad, if you feel like you need to shout into the void, there are a couple of protests downtown on Saturday. These aren't ICE specific. They're part of a bigger national movement because it's Trump's birthday. That multi-million-dollar military parade is happening on Saturday.
I fully forgot about that, Sophia.
I didn't.
Wow. Just with all of the headlines and everything that keeps happening, I just forgot about the parade.
Well, that parade is part of why this whole protest day started. It's called No King's Day. It is basically an anti-Trump protest. On the main website, there's some language about how, they've defied our courts, deported people, slashed services. There have been so many funding cuts. And yet there is money for this military parade. Anyway, there are a couple different protests downtown. We'll have links in the show notes if you want a little more information about that.
Well, we'll turn now to trivia and actually focus a little bit more on the actual holiday. Saturday is Flag Day, of course. Today's trivia question is written by our brilliant quiz master, Kevin Gavin, and presented by the Heinz History Center. They actually host their own trivia nights, so if you are a true trivia junkie, you should check them out. You can get tickets now for Thursday, July 10th. And while you are there, make sure to check out their exhibit on Pittsburgh's hidden history. We have all been. We loved it. It was super fun. So the trivia question. Sophia, are you ready?
No.
Well, I'm going to say it anyway. Okay, so Flag Day. It actually has some roots here in Pittsburgh. So William Kerr from Collier Township here spent decades lobbying the White House for formal recognition of our nation's flag. He was just one dude who was kind of obsessed with this. So after years and years of this, in 1949, President Harry Truman signed the observance into law. Kerr, the Pittsburgher, he had also led a fundraising campaign to build a historic flag monument here in Pittsburgh. Sophia, do you know where that monument is located?
Absolutely not.
I'll give you some choices.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mount Washington, Flagstaff Hill, Flag Plaza, or Schenley Plaza?
I'm going to go with Flag Plaza because I've never seen a flag on Flagstaff Hill.
Okay, we'll have the answer after the break. Today's show is supported by Tree Pittsburgh and its STEAM Outside Camp. This summer's adventure runs July 21st through 25th at Tree Pittsburgh's gorgeous little riverside spot in Upper Lawrenceville. It's tucked up there along Butler, nestled next to the Allegheny River, which makes it so perfect for camp activities like paddleboarding. Tree Pittsburgh's STEAM Outside Camp sounds like so much fun. It's geared towards rising 4th through 6th graders and perfect for a budding nature lover. Throughout the week, campers will get the chance to travel through tree time, make tree art, journal, learn about investigative science, commune with nature, and care for trees across their different life cycles. And they'll also be empowered to be lasting stewards of our city's urban green spaces. Spots are limited, so if you have a kiddo in your life, make sure they sign up soon. Register at treepittsburgh.org/camp.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. 9.5 plus pH, now in cans.
Refreshing.
Made for every way you move.
Should I run a marathon?
Let's start with finishing that water. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, now in a sleek can. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
We are back. And Sophia, I have bad news. You are incorrect. It is not Flag Plaza. It is, in fact, Flagstaff Hill. Exactly what you thought it
there
wasn't.
are flags there?
Sort of. So it's actually at the bottom of Flagstaff Hill.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
But it's also maybe the easiest thing to see if you're like kind of like parking near Phipps Conservatory, like it's right there. The monument was dedicated June 14th, 1927. So fully 2 decades before the White House acknowledged this dude. But it was the 150th anniversary of the adoption of the American flag. And the fundraiser this guy sponsored, more than 180,000 children apparently donated 1 penny each to build the monument. So again, that's the bottom of Flagstaff Hill over there in Oakland. We've got a little explainer about all this on our website.
Okay, I'll look out for it next time around that area. I probably have seen it before and thought they were just like regular flags. I didn't realize there was any significance to that specific spot.
It is fairly modest, I will say, but I mean, 180,000 pennies is actually not that much money, you know?
Yeah, I guess it doesn't buy you that much now, but I guess I also imagine that maybe it was worth a little bit more when the monument was built.
I mean, keep in mind, this is also like the same period where they were building the Cathedral of Learning, too. So, you know, a lot happening over there in Oakland at the time. So we will move on. We're going to try something a little bit different this week. We're doing kind of a mailbag segment because we have talked about a bunch of stuff in recent weeks and gotten a lot of feedback from folks about it and learned a little bit more about some of the stuff that we discussed.
Definitely.
So we're so excited. Y'all, please keep sending us your thoughts, your feelings, your extra context about the stuff we're talking about. We're going to kick it off with City Council. They did pass that bill that we talked about that would give more sick days to employees here in Pittsburgh. So starting in January, employees at larger businesses, so this is 15 people or more, will get up to 9 days of paid sick leave, and employees at those smaller businesses, so 14 or fewer, will get up to 6 days of paid sick time. The SEIU, of course, is calling this a win. They were really doing a lot to try to rally everybody, and it seems like council was kind of on board from the beginning. But a ton of workers testified in front of council and shared how this would be a big benefit to their lives to not have to like choose about whether to like not get a paycheck or get to like actually stay home when they're sick, you know?
And they also talked about how it would be a benefit for everyone because then they aren't pressured into showing up work, potentially getting more people sick. We did a whole episode about this with local SEIU leader Sam Williamson. So he talked about the first time we got paid sick leave in the city and how there was a pretty long legal challenge to like actually putting it into practice. Some restaurant and hospitality folks were less enthused about more sick pay this time around as well because they said their profit margins are really small. So it's kind of hard to predict how much money they're going to get sometimes or like the cost of things. But Sam's counter argument was that it costs less to give employees a few more sick days and really incentivize them into staying than, you know, they go somewhere else with more benefits and then you need to spend money on training new employees.
And hiring and all that too. Council did, they called it delaying the implementation of this to January 2026. But when we talked to Sam, he said that was the plan. So I don't know if that's just like messaging or whatever. I thought it was sort of funny. Anyway, this will not take effect until January. But one listener, Scott K, emailed us with like kind of a counter argument that we did not address in that episode. So Scott pointed out that the city's sick leave policy is pretty different actually from the county's.
Yeah, so the county uses 26 employees as their number to differentiate between small and large businesses.
Which is a lot bigger.
Yeah, I was surprised by that number. So fewer than 26 employees, that business doesn't need to provide paid sick leave at all. If you have 26 or more employees, though, those workers would get 8 days of paid leave, though, you know, an employer could decide to give you more time.
Yeah, these are minimums. So Scott said that he just thought that there was like a reasonable argument for making sure that the city doesn't get too far away from, you know, the economics of choosing a place in Allegheny County, but outside the city. He just said he felt like it diminished Pittsburgh's competitiveness from a business perspective. But it's just like a hard thing to quantify because you just like, you can't count businesses that don't open, that choose not to even consider the city. For what it's worth, though, I asked a few City Hall reporter friends friends about this, like if they heard any like, conversation within council or anything like that. Because like we watch a lot of meetings over here, but we do not get to attend the city council meetings very often. They said sometimes questions like this, like the difference between the city and county, will come up when they're talking about like enacting a new policy or expanding one, like at least acknowledge that potential economic impact. But this was not one of them where they were worried about that at all. There was one, the plastic bag ban. They said that was a huge point of contention when they were discussing that. But like not this one. This just like didn't factor at all.
That's really fascinating to me that the plastic bag ban would make the bigger splash, but I guess people were pretty angry about that. But maybe this also means that someone should start bugging county council about more sick time for employees
like a
in the
mandatory
county.
amount of sick time, even for small employers.
Yeah, give everyone more sick time. I hate showing up to work sick. No one should have to do that.
And we work remote, so like it's a different game for us. Another one that we wanted to talk through, last week we had taken a spin through some of the salary data that our friends over at Public Source published. They always do an annual review of the highest paid employees at Allegheny County. And one of the ones that our executive producer, Mallory Falk, called out was just how many people they seem to employ that work on air quality there. And Carolyn D. wrote into us. Carolyn is not only a listener of the podcast, but also an environmental engineer, and had an explanation.
Yeah, so Carolyn said that when the EPA passes a big act, so in this case, it would be the Clean Air Act, it gives primacy for enforcement to state environmental agencies. But, obviously, Allegheny County Health Department, not a state agency. But the county did a lot of work in air pollution control before the Clean Air Act was passed. But because we've had this history of, being at the forefront of air pollution laws and air pollution control, we just have a lot of people still sticking around, and we're still a major factor in that.
And studying the long-term effects of it, too. Carolyn also shared a link to a story that was produced by Science Friday here locally about like the history of the Clean Air Act. And I've read about this, but I didn't think about it in context with high-paid, county employees last week. But a lot of the public awareness about all this started in 1948. I feel like we keep going back in time today because of a horrible smog incident in Donora, Pennsylvania, south of here. Sophia, are you familiar with this at all? I feel like
no, this was new for me. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah. If you are not familiar with Donora, it's worth like at minimum like a Wikipedia rabbit hole, although we will link the Science Friday story. It's better. But there was this temperature inversion. It was like a blanket of warm air that settled over the river valley and like trapped everything like a lid. And this does happen from time to time. But it was really horrible because it trapped in cooler air, and Donora was a mill town. It was really small. There were like 14,000 people total, but all that air pollution that they created in those mills every day got trapped and created this horrible choking smog that hung out close to the ground for 5 days. So again, small town, 14,000 people. By the time the smog was gone, 20 people were dead and another 6,000 were really, really sick. Like that's almost half the town.
Mm-hmm. So not surprising that Allegheny County wanted to, make things better.
I mean, Pittsburgh was just like Donora, but on a larger scale. Like if you look at any historic photo of our city, we are black. In the middle of the day, it is dark outside because of the air pollution, which is a reputation we are still trying to overcome.
Yeah, the air pollution hasn't really been all that great the past few days as well.
That's wildfire smoke, though. That's not entirely our fault.
That is different. But, air quality, we still have our own problems today. But
Truly.
The Clean Air Act was passed in 1970 under Richard Nixon, but Allegheny County was way ahead of the curve. We passed our first law around air pollution in 1949, so just right after Donora. So thank you again, Carolyn, for sharing this. We love having listeners who are bringing their own expertise, pointing out new perspectives. So if you ever want to chime in on something, you can email us or call the hotline at 412-212-8893.
So moving on, we also talked a little bit about this last week, but the pro tournament over at Oakmont, the U.S. Open, is going on now. So this is through Sunday. But I learned a little more about this course and its history that I just kind of think is maybe worth going through because it's like super quirky and weird. So Sophia, are you ready?
Okay, please share. Yes, this one I'm ready for.
Okay. So it was designed by this guy named Henry Clay Phones. No relation to Henry Clay Frick. This must have been a popular combination of names back in the day, who years earlier had owned Carrie Furnace with his brother. So this was back in like the 1880s and 90s. And back then, he was a bicycle enthusiast. So at the time, I guess, owning a bicycle and being in a bicycle club was a status thing that rich people did.
Really, bicycle club?
Yeah, right.
Did not know they existed as like a status symbol.
Yeah, I mean, just the juxtaposition of that versus now blows my mind anyway. But Pittsburgh Magazine has a great story about all of this. But according to legend, Phones was in his 40s or so when he was trying to fix a broken bike rim himself, like in his own garage, and welded it without any eye protection. So he starts seeing these spots in front of his eyes, goes to a doctor, and gets misdiagnosed with something horrible that the doctor said meant he only had like a year or two left to live. I know. And so he sells his businesses, including Carrie Furnace, to Andrew Carnegie, of all people, and goes to Britain to play golf. So this guy Phones, he gets obsessed. He eventually realizes that he is, in fact, not going to die immediately. He comes home to Pittsburgh and discovers that Pittsburgh now has golf. But he thinks all the courses here completely suck. So in 1903, he buys a bunch of farmland over in Oakmont and carves this course into it. So we talked about like how difficult it was last week, but I didn't really know what that meant. So I really appreciate all the reporting that has deep dived this, kind of like how in the like when the Olympics are here, like you start seeing all this reporting about it. The fairways, our guests, are way longer than what was normal back then. The bunkers and the tall grass all over were just like uniquely hard. And there were tons of these traps, like 16-ish per hole, I think is what it averaged out to, like intentional ways to screw up a golfer's game.
Did he just like really hard golf?
He wanted to punish people. Like apparently this is like a central part of his personality that like both Phones.
Did he also play it though?
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't just like laughing at the masses. He also wanted a challenge.
No, apparently he was a phenomenal golfer. Like because he was rich and could do it, like he played all the time and he was quite good. And both he and his son, who ran the club later, were known to say that they liked to punish bad golfing. Like if you hit a bad shot, you now get to deal with the consequences and they're going to make it as rough on you as possible.
Wonder how that translates to their business approach.
I mean, actually, here we go. So one very important note about this and its history that I just learned this week, and I thought we should talk about. The club always allowed women to play like from day one, which was radical at the time, really uncommon, very cool. But they did not allow Black golfers to join the club until they were effectively forced to by a golfing association. And Sophia, take a guess what year?
1973.
It's worse. 1991.
Oh.
Can you believe? I cannot get over that. They weren't going to be allowed to host any major tournaments anymore if they continued to allow discrimination. So they got forced to overturn this rule. Like that's within my lifetime.
That's wild.
Yeah. So flash forward to today, we talked about like just how notoriously hard the course is. It's been updated a million times, including just in the last couple years. I heard Oakmont's current golf pro saying on WDVE this week that a good golfer should expect to play like 30% worse at Oakmont than they do anywhere else. And like a just okay golfer should basically just not bother keeping score and be happy to be outside swinging a golf club. Like that should just be their barometer for this. Like this interview to me, Sophia, felt exactly as smug as I associate with professional golf.
But did this article explain why it's a squirrel as a mascot? Because that's my biggest question.
Nope. Apparently it was picked decades ago and used in like some kind of like advertisement, and it's just stuck ever since.
Okay, sure. I'll accept that. We didn't get into like the history of this last week, but we were kind of wondering whether Pittsburgh sees much of an economic boost during the U.S. Open, because obviously the tournament is outside city limits. But it turns out that small businesses in Oakmont itself aren't necessarily seeing people visit, even though, estimates said that 200,000 people will be passing through the area.
Yeah, a connection of ours actually passed along some LinkedIn posts about this from a small business owner, Anna Bensavanga over there. She owns Urbana Boutique, a women's clothing store. But she was writing just about how like the U.S. Golf Association has put up signs about extreme traffic, quote unquote, and they're providing shuttles, so visitors can get around, but they're intentionally not taking them through the Oakmont business district, which just like kind of stinks for local businesses. So like on day 3 of the Open, for example, because they had like a bunch of public stuff that led up to the major tournament that started yesterday, she had posted again about how the business district basically had empty parking lots, despite the U.S. Open site all being like totally filled and packed, and just like how disappointed a lot of local business owners are that like the U.S. Golf Association has basically cut them out of all of this. Like they're right there and they still don't get to benefit from it.
That's also really wild. You'd think you'd have like I know last week we talked about some of like their food specials, and I get maybe they want to have some sandwiches at every U.S. Open no matter where it's hosted, but you'd also kind of assume that, you might tap in some local businesses to cater or something like that, but I guess not.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like if you're going to traffic in the name, like, calling it the Oakmont and like how exciting that is, like you would hope that the community named Oakmont would feel included in the process.
So I guess if you are at the U.S. Open, show the local businesses some love. If you go there after the Open, because I kind of feel that. I don't want to deal with the traffic, but I'd happily wander around the Oakmont business district for a little bit.
It's cute up there. You totally should.
I haven't spent a ton of time there. I've driven through a few times, but I would very happily go over there. Now I have an excuse to. And then one more note, if you have a kid in your life, they can play golf for really cheap. Bank of America has this program called Golf With Us. They heard last week's pod and sent us a note about it. So this is a 1-year membership. Kids and teens ages 6 through 18 can sign up for Youth on the Course. So this is totally free, but there's this huge benefit to signing up. You can get access to rounds of golf for $5 or less. So there are a bunch of courses listed all over the country. Like I said, once you sign up, you get this discount for a year. So a couple of our local golf courses are involved in this. One is the Bob O'Connor course. If you're part of this program, you can play 9 holes for $1, one single dollar. Did not know you could still get things for $1.
I mean, limited time access, I guess. But yeah, and the Bob's not very expensive either. But still, this is much cheaper than the regular rate.
And then another golf course involved is 3 Lakes. It is $3 for 9 holes or $5 for a full 18-hole round thing. You can tell I don't play golf.
A round of golf. Also, I just wanted to throw in one quick fact because I was reminded of it this week. If you need something like spirited to drink, like you just want to feel festive about the U.S. Open, don't sleep on another Pittsburgh treasure, the Arnold Palmer. So Palmer himself was a professional golfer from Latrobe. But the drink that he is now famous for is like a blend of iced tea and lemonade. It's like a signature drink now at a lot of golf places. But like Arizona Tea sells it in cans at like every grocery store in the world.
I love Arizona. Giant. Also $1.
Still on it. Like those cans or big jugs of it. And if you prefer it spiked, I cannot recommend enough the Spicy Palmy, which is credit to my brother and sister-in-law. They do like kind of a 30-70, 40-60 ratio of spiced rum to Arnold Palmer, 2 or 3 of those, and you don't care how you're doing playing golf. Like you're just having a nice time.
Ooh, I have spiked Arnold Palmers before, but not with spiced rum. I could definitely get behind that.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen Report.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
We are back, and we are here with shout-outs and recommendations from our CityCast Pittsburgh neighbors. So the first one today is from Jacob K., who lives in Bellevue. Jacob is recommending that we all check out Dari Villa Restaurant. It's a diner. Obviously, I did peep at the menu. Very classic diner stuff. Breakfast, burgers, sandwiches, milkshakes. They have like a hot cocoa milkshake and like a pineapple milkshake. So I will definitely be heading over to Bellevue to check that out. And then our next shout out is from G4, who is actually tuning into us from State College. Very cool. But G4 has come to spend some time here in Pittsburgh, and they really enjoyed hanging out in East Liberty. They said that East Liberty has a parking garage perfect for rail fanning Amtrak's Pennsylvanian. And I think rail fanning means like watching the train pass by. If you're into that, soak in the vibes. There's some fun coffee shops in the area too. So thank you, Jacob K. and G4.
And if you want to share your favorite local business or nonprofit like Jacob and G4, you're more than welcome to. This is a thing we're offering to all of our CityCast Pittsburgh neighbors. You can get in touch with us as often as you want to. We want to hear what you're loving. You can change with the season. You can send us like 4 at a time. It's whatever you want. Become a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor and send us your shout out. We're going to read it here every week on the Friday shows. You can join today at membership.citycast.fm. Again, that is membership.citycast.fm.
Okay, so moving back to the news, Megan, what else happened recently that people should know about?
Yeah, so we've been following this one for a while. The Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh took to the courts recently. So they are seeking about $86,000 in legal fees from the advocacy organization Not on Our Dime. So Not on Our Dime are the ones that tried to get a question on our primary ballot back in May, asking voters if the city should divest from governments engaged in genocide and any companies that do business with them. They called out Israel by name. Not on Our Dime did not get enough signatures, so it never happened. We never saw that on our ballots. But we talked about this a lot in our lead up to the primary. This court filing, Not on Our Dime, has called the Jewish Federation's lawsuit punitive and an effort to, quote, stifle democracy. The Federation said that the whole process, and Not on Our Dime, knowing that they didn't have enough signatures and proceeding anyway, they said that actual language appeared in a court document, that the whole thing created an unnecessary burden on the Federation's time, money, and resources, which they say could have been better spent serving their community. The president and CEO of the Federation said, quote, "Given the circumstances, we believe it is appropriate to seek reimbursement for these attorneys' fees and costs."
We'll be keeping an eye on that, so you'll know if there's any major development that happens. Next, I'm going to take us to the Tony Awards, which happened on Sunday. And folks affiliated with Carnegie Mellon University took home 3 awards this year. So that included categories like Best Actress in a Featured Role in a Musical, Best Revival of a Musical, and Best Costume Design of a Musical. And, some CMU alumni were also on stage to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Hamilton.
Yes, in case you are not familiar, that included Leslie Odom Jr., who played Aaron Burr, and Renee Elise Goldsberry, who was Angelica Schuyler. CMU has such an incredible and storied drama program over there, so it's always neat to watch how excited the school gets every Tony Award season. I never paid attention to the Tony Awards season. Before I moved to Pittsburgh, I wasn't a musical theater kid.
Oh, same here. I'm not a huge musical person.
I had a lot of friends that were super into it. It wasn't the thing that spoke to my preteen heart, but I love how pumped CMU gets about this stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm always happy when Pittsburghers succeed.
Some more good bridge news. So the Davis Avenue Bridge over in the north side is open, just quietly soft opened a few days ago. So there's going to be a proper celebration, a grand opening on June 20th at 11:30 a.m. They're going to do a real ribbon cutting. It's a little unusual that it's open before the ribbon cutting, but it's just so neat. I'm so glad it's back in the neighborhood. If you're not familiar with the history, this thing was determined to be not safe and demolished really, really quickly not that long ago. And it just like cut off people's access in Brighton Heights and like those neighborhoods to Riverview Park. Like it had been a 5-minute walk before, and then suddenly it was like a 35-minute walk at best, but like easier to drive. It's just been like such a missing piece for a long time. But the city has finally brought it back. It is a brand new bridge. So just pedestrian and bikers now, no car traffic allowed. But it's just so cool. I got to connect with District 1 City Councilman Bobby Wilson about all of this. Basically, all of this has gotten done under his leadership. But he said that he heard the project managers over in the city's Department of Mobility and Infrastructure were like fighting about who got to be in charge of this. Yeah, because Pittsburgh basically never builds a brand new bridge from scratch. And it was just like such an exciting prospect to like get to do this.
I quite frankly think it's a really easy sell to continue to invest in the north side. We have so many great amenities, and all we need to do is fix it up. And it just takes a little bit of funding to get started with some of these projects. It takes, community support. But once we get the ball rolling, and we start going into the design phase, I mean, we have for all these projects. Once we get into the design phase, and I mean, we can really show, taxpayers, the city, why we should be investing in this neighborhood.
So obviously he's still like super future focused about all the things they've got in the works. You finish one project and more attention can be paid on some of the others. So he said they're working on like 5-ish new city parks projects in that District 1 area. So that's like most of the north side. All of which he said should get a groundbreaking in the next year. I did ask him if our budget problems that we keep talking about like could delay any of this. But he said no, that all of these are already paid for. So it's just a matter of getting organized, getting shovels in the ground. For what it's worth, he did say he is very worried about Pittsburgh's budget, just not in connection to these parks projects.
Okay, got it. Well, the city has a dashboard that updates progress on capital projects like this one in city parks. So it looks like there's some things in the works over in Spring Garden and Spring Hill, more to come in Riverview Park and in Brighton Heights too.
Yeah, Wilson also mentioned one in Troy Hill. I haven't seen that one pop online yet. I don't know if you spotted it, Sophia.
I didn't see that either.
If you want to peruse the dashboard, it is really neat, actually, because you can see like the progress reports, like how they're doing. And, if you spot any near you that are in early stages, they're often like asking for neighbor feedback. So you can tell the city what you want to see over there.
More bridges, more working bridges.
I mean, more playgrounds, like more cute
adult-sized playgrounds.
Amenities, like functional basketball goals. Like, there's a lot of good stuff.
I want more swings. I see so many playgrounds with like kiddie swings. I want adult-sized swings.
You want an adult-sized swing? I think that's a fair ask, actually. We're going to talk a little bit about Juneteenth. So last week we mentioned B. Marshall's Western Pennsylvania Juneteenth celebration. That's the organizer that's planned it for years and years. We talked about what he had in the works over in Mellon Park, but we weren't sure yet if the city was going to do theirs. Like they made such a huge deal of it last year.
Yeah, 2 separate celebrations. They wanted to fund their own thing.
Yeah, since then, this past week, the city released their events lineup.
Yeah, so the city is starting their Juneteenth celebration with a free concert this Saturday in the afternoon. It's going to be on the north side at Allegheny Commons. They've also got a bunch of movie screenings. So this includes screenings of Fences, the movie based on the August Wilson play, and then Pixar's Soul. So those are going to be in multiple neighborhoods. And then there's also a skate night at Shenley Park with PGH Skate, a Whammo Day, and then there's also a rolling art cart going around the city. So again, there'll be a link in the show notes with all the information for dates and times. Also subscribe to our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter because we have so many events in there. And of course, B. Marshall celebration is happening June 19th to 22nd, so you can check that out too.
And then finally, some good news over in the East End. The Frick Mansion that we've talked about before, that Clayton house, officially got added to the National Register of Historic Places. Had no idea that this was not already there.
Yeah, I assumed it was already on the Historic Register. So this was new news to me.
I thought it was really funny that like the press release for this literally says that like you might have expected that this was already a thing. In fact, it was not. The house over there is undergoing a bunch of construction. They're always working on preservation work over there. Right now, it's like woodwork and windows and even like the paint and restoring that to be something a little bit more historically accurate. But you can still book a tour and visit the actual house. Unfortunately, there's been a little bit of bad news about the art museum space right beside it.
Yeah, the art museum is currently closed because of issues with like their fire alarm system. But, the Frick still has an exhibit in their greenhouse. You can check out old-timey vehicles in their car and carriage museum. And then they also have Fridays at the Frick if you want to catch some live music on their lawn. The next one is June 27th. So there's still a lot of things to do on that little campus of theirs where you can also take a peek at the house.
Yeah, and just like walk around. It's really nice on like a nice, pretty day.
There's a cafe. Get yourself a little treat and then
a latte.
Take a little walk.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Our music is by Benji, All the Kimonos, and Crimson Vortex, with additional music from epidemicsound.com. Mallory Falk is our executive producer. Sophia Lowe and Lizzie Goldsmith produced the show this week. Francesca DeBecco writes our newsletter. Kevin Gavin is our trivia master. And I am your host, Megan Harris. We will be back on Monday with more news from around the city. Have a great weekend, y'all.
Okay, I've never golfed before, and now I want to go just hit things.
I mean,
and purposely be bad. I'm just gonna keep hitting horribly